Sonya Isaacs of the award-winning family band The Isaacs learned early on how to craft a song. And it wasn't from a classroom or the writing rooms of Nashville's Music Row, but as a kid driving down the highway with her family.
And there were many times when Dad would be driving and he would say, "Sonya, get this pencil and paper and write this song down for me." And he would write a song and we'd all have to be quiet in the car. And so we learned to write songs by helping him.
I first met Sonya in 2000 when she left the comfort of those family harmonies and stepped out for the first time to release her self-titled solo album. That project came about after artist manager Mark Ketchum proposed she make a trip to Nashville.
He found me and he said, "I love your voice." And he said, "Would you be interested in coming to Nashville?" And this was like the late 90s. Coming to Nashville and singing on some demos for me. Mark played the songs for some labels to pitch to artists, and I got a record deal. It was different traveling without my family. It's all I'd ever known, and it was kind of lonely out there.
The multi-Grammy nominated group The Isaacs are not only known for their music, but also for their heart. They launched the Isaacs Foundation in honor of their matriarch, Lily Isaacs' mother, a Holocaust survivor.
I promise you, after we started doing that, the favor of God just started pouring on us. I mean, after that, we were inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. We were asked to be members of the Grand Ole Opry. We won didn't win, but we got 3 Grammy nominations in that next 5 years. It was almost like God couldn't thank us enough for doing what He asked us to do.
Well, she's one of the most revered voices in music, having recorded with everyone from Dolly Parton to Vince Gill and, of course, her family band. We're talking about the Isaacs. Please welcome from the Isaacs, the incomparable Miss Sonya Isaacs. Good to see you here on the John Deere stage on the record. What a pleasure to finally get you here.
I'm so happy to be here. You know, I love you personally. I love your show. Everything. So thank you so much for having me. I feel honored.
She is so sweet. I said, Sonya Isaacs coming. Everybody was so excited. I said, she's an angel. You're an angel walking on this earth. And your whole family. I want to talk about your family band, the history of that. First of all, we look at some of the awards and the recognitions, the Doves, the International Bluegrass Music Awards, the Grammys, so much recognition, the history of your family's band. I thought maybe we could go back, your mom, Lily, your father, Joe, and when they first started, gosh, that was how many years ago? It formed back in New York City.
Over 50 years ago. Yeah. So it is a really fascinating story. How much time do you have? The Cliff Notes version. So our dad's the baby child of 17 children, whose father was a Pentecostal preacher from the hills of eastern Kentucky. And he became a bluegrass musician and started really pursuing that with different bands. Meanwhile, my mom, I grew up in New York City. She's the daughter of Polish Jewish Holocaust survivors who came to America when my mom was 2 to start a new life. And she grew up in New York City, also talented. And here's Dad in Kentucky, same age, and here she is in New York starting a new life. And she became interested in acting in off-Broadway. She started acting in off-Broadway in New York. And she and her best friend, her roommate, started singing together, playing their guitars, folk music, and got a record deal in Columbia Records in the late 60s. And then they started, they were pursuing their own musical careers, and they ended up performing at the same nightclub called Gertie's Folk City. And they were playing there for like the same 6-week stint in, I guess, the late 60s.
She must have some incredible stories from that time.
Yes, she did. She met some legends there.
Oh, of course.
And she met my dad there. And they fell in love, and even though they were completely opposite from opposite ends of the world in America, they fell in love, and they got married eventually, and then started a family together. And so they started singing together after they converted to Christianity. My dad was raised Pentecostal. My mom was raised in a Jewish home, but she wasn't very religious. And so when they got married, due to a death in the family, my dad's brother was killed in a car accident. He was in his 20s. And they went to church, and they both accepted Christ and started singing in churches together.
Oh,
that's how the Isaacs started over 50 years ago.
Well, they were doing bluegrass prior to that, pretty much, or folk bluegrass?
Dad was doing bluegrass, Mom was doing folk music, and so when they got married, she just basically just went to his style. So you've got this hippie girl singing bluegrass music, and now gospel bluegrass music, and so that's just how the Isaacs were born. And as my brother and sister and I were born into the group, we just kind of grew up traveling with them. And when we became 7, 8, 9 years old, we started showing interest in music, playing instruments. We could sing harmony when we were little, like 5, 6 years old. We sang, they called us little gospel chipmunks because we could harmonize at such a young age, and we sounded like chipmunks. Our voices were so high. And so that's kind of how we began. And we started playing instruments and took our positions in the group when we were teenagers.
So were you guys going, was it pretty much based at home? Were you traveling a lot, or were you kind of like, and so school, and so really different childhood? Were you kind of just traveling with the family?
We were in the public school system, but we had a great school, and they understood the benefits and the education in doing what we were doing. And so they were very easy to work with as far as missing Fridays or coming in late Mondays. We would travel mostly in the tri-state, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana area, because we lived in Ohio. And kind of that's where our popularity was at the time. And then when we were in high school, and I was a senior in high school, we had our first #1 in gospel music that my brother and I wrote. And so then we started getting more national attention and traveling a lot more. And so that's kind of where it really changed for us.
Your family, your parents eventually would separate, and I can only imagine that. Was there any point where you thought, do we keep the band going?
I don't think there was ever at that crossroads. It's been 28 years, 30 years ago since Mom and Dad divorced, and Dad moved back to Kentucky where he was from. But he had already kind of stopped traveling a lot with us anyway for health issues, and so we were kind of used to going on without him when he couldn't go, and so we decided we were just going to keep it going. And we did. I
heard you say that your father, really one of the most underrated bluegrass artists. Had he stuck with bluegrass, I know he had played with Ralph Stanley.
Yes, he did.
He shared the stage with some of the most world-renowned bluegrassers. He was really in that world.
He was. Dad played, he played a lot of shows with Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley and Carter. When Carter died, Dad filled in for a couple years and sang with Ralph Stanley and toured with him. And so Dad was really... He's a great singer and a great songwriter and a great banjo and guitar player. And I think very underrated because he devoted his life to gospel music and it wasn't as popular as bluegrass. So it's just straight bluegrass. So he kind of was a fish out of water in some of those places, but you know, he really is responsible for us learning to play instruments and songwrite. And there are many times when Dad would be driving and he would say, Sonya, come up, get this pencil and paper and write this song down for me. And he would write a song and we'd all have to be quiet in the car. And so we learned to write songs by helping him. And I learned to write a lot of songs by helping him. So, he's a huge part of who we are and always will be.
Yeah.
He's still living. He's 78 years old. He lives in Kentucky. And I have a wonderful stepmother, Stacy, and he comes when he can to see us, but his health's not the best, but we just owe him so much.
But what a foundation for all of you and what you and your sister Becky and, of course, Ben and the music that you do. But I want to go and fast forward into the 90s and talk about when I met you, a young girl on Lyric Street Records, walking into a New York City or New York station, country radio station. I'm going to go back to that day. Stay with us a lot more when we come back here on The Record.
He said, do you think that you would want to come on the road and sing backup with me on tour? That way we could use our off time to work on your record. And I said, yeah, of course I would.
Welcome back to On the Record, spending time with Sonya Isaacs. And before the break, I said, do you kids know how cool you are? Because some of the things that you've gotten to do, not only, of course, I'm sure they're thinking, oh, Mom and, Aunt Becky and Uncle Ben and Grandma doing all that stuff. But you got to sing, the voice of Hannah Montana, right? You sing a background for Miley. I'm not the voice of Hannah Montana, but and also Geppetto in movies like Monsters, Inc. Does that kind of ring Does that kind of resonate with them at all? They kind of pay attention to that?
I think they're so used to us doing so many things that they just really, it doesn't impress them that much. Now, I will say that my kids love Michael Buble because we listen to him all the time in the car, and they love his voice. And Michael was on the Opry recently in December with Carly Pierce, and he was so nice. And I told Carly before I got there, I said, Carly, I have to meet Michael Buble. Like, he is my all-time favorite singer. I want to sing with him. She said, don't worry. I already told him he's got to stand by the stage and watch you guys sing, and he's excited to meet you. And I'm like, oh my God. So I was like really gurming, you know, and just like, I was just so excited. And he came over as soon as we got there, and he was so nice, like so nice. Nicest person I believe I've ever met in my life. And he's like, oh, we need to jam and sing. And I'm like, well, we could go in the dressing room. And he's like, let's do it, Carly, let's do it. So all of us go in the dressing room, and we start jamming, and for an hour we're singing together, and I'm just like scared to death. And then Carly's like, hey, you guys sing How Great Thou Art for Michael, so he can, and it's an a cappella. And it was one of the first things she said, and I was just like, you want me to sing a cappella in front of Michael Buble, right? Like, he's standing like this close to me. And so we did, and it went fine, but he loved it, and it was wonderful.
Everybody wants to sing with the Isaacs, and I watch you on stage with so many people, artist after artist. Anybody that, obviously Michael Buble stands out, but I mean, the opportunities that, anything come to mind off the bat that you go, wow, that was really cool that we got to do that as a family?
Singing with Dolly on multiple records, opening for Reba, going out on stage with her in her set and singing, 10 minutes worth of songs with her.
I probably should switch this around. I feel like I should have Reba here asking her what it was like to sing with the Isaacs. That's really, truthfully, that's how it works. Carnegie Hall, getting to play that stage.
Oh, yes.
Of course, I always thought that was like full circle, knowing your parents started in New York and then to be able to go as a family band and play that stage.
And my grandmother was there, the Holocaust survivor. And it was a Bill Gaither taping, and Bill invited my grandmother to come out on stage and say something, because my grandmother had never been acknowledged publicly for her time in the camps. And so Bill called Grandma out and said, would you like to say anything, Faye, to this? And there was a room full of servicemen and women, and just honoring all of the veterans. And it was such an honoring America. And it was right after 9/11. And so my grandma get up there, and she said, in her very thick Polish accent, she said, I'm very proud to be an American now. And they gave her a standing ovation.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps.
This whole room in Carnegie Hall. And so it was just, it was so spectacular, and she deserved that.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
what a
She was
moment.
awesome, but
Moment after moment, highlight after highlight. And the milestones, of course, becoming Opry members in September was 2021.
2021,
right? What a night that was. Like I said, an education in our faith and reminding us in our faith through your music. And I feel like more than a hollow hallelujah does that. Boy, I think a lot of us kind of a little sheepish, kind of hide back a little bit, a little, nervous, or maybe a little ashamed to really blast it out. But this song reminds us to do that. And I thought we could go ahead and play some of that. Can we do it?
Thank you. Yes, I love that. The four of us, Becky, Mom, Ben, and I, wrote this song together. And it's easy to criticize other people, and it's difficult to receive criticism from people. And sometimes I think you're right; it does make us inhibited or feel a little bit afraid to express our faith when you can be ridiculed so easily on social media or in person. But this song is just a reminder to focus on God only and your relationship, and not let the opinions of man dictate your walk with him, because there's so much to the mysteries of God, and we're just splashing around in the shallows of his mysteries and his favor and his blessings. And it's so much better if you just go on out into the deep and stop caring what anybody thinks about that, or what anybody thinks about your relationship with God. It's none of their business. It's between you and God, and make it the best that you can. That's what this song's about.
I love it. What an introduction. Here it is.
When I shout hallelujah, this time it's not just a sound. Hallelujah.
Blast it out. Blast it out. Yell that hallelujah. Let people hear you. What comes to mind, and we're running out of time, but the Isaacs Foundation, your good friend, Connie Smith, your fellow Opry member, had said, what good am I if I don't walk the walk? And I feel like you guys do every single time. Talk a little bit about the Charity Foundation, the work that you do, not only here at home, but also for Israel, and the pilgrimages that you do, the annual pilgrimages that you take to Israel, those trips bringing not only fellow artists, but fans as well. I can't imagine the life-changing experience that is every time you step on that holy land.
It's incredible. In 2018, we had been going to Israel, taking groups of people, just people that wanted to go, that wanted to sign up and go to Israel with the Isaacs for many years. I mean, we've been 17 times to Israel and taken lots of people to Israel. And so it was Israel's 70th anniversary as a nation that year. And so we didn't want to go empty-handed. So we started raising money as quick as we could. Like we had 3 months to do it, to take money to Israel so we could we wanted to bless Holocaust survivors in Israel and orphans. And so we started a nonprofit, the Isaacs Foundation, to do that. And so I think within maybe 2 months, we raised something like $40,000, just as hard as we could, and it wasn't, it's not a ton of money for a foundation, but for us, it was a good start.
That's a great start, my God.
It was a good start, and so we gave it away when we went there, and we just kept doing it, and so every year we're constantly raising money for Israel, because Israel is our homeland as believers, it's Yeshua, Jesus' homeland. And so we cherish it for that reason, but it's also the home to the Jewish people, which is our heritage. And so it has a double special meaning for our family. And so, even God told us in the Bible, I'll bless those that bless my people. And I promise you, after we started doing that, the favor of God just started pouring on us. I mean, after that, we were inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. We were asked to be members of the Grand Ole Opry, a gospel group. God invited to be members of the Grand Ole Opry. We won didn't win, but we got 3 Grammy nominations in that next 5 years. It was almost like God couldn't thank us enough for doing what he asked us to do.
Sonya Isaacs, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you, your entire family. Give them my love, will you?
Thank you. You're the best.
Love this girl. Thank you for watching from the John Deere stage, the incomparable Sonya Isaacs.